This girlfriend faked her grandmother's dementia to sneak out with his car, and what she did next. Absolutely wild. Was he wrong for what he did, or did she have this coming? And trust me, that's just story number one, because we've got 5 of the most jaw-dropping AITAH stories lined up today, and each one just keeps getting crazier. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to AITAH Chronicles, where we dive into the wildest, most unhinged Reddit AITAH stories every single day. If you're here for drama, relationship chaos, family dysfunction, and those wait, what moments that make you question everything, you're in exactly the right place. Real quick, we're on a mission to hit 10K subscribers, and honestly, every single view, every like, every comment from you guys gets us closer. So if you're enjoying the content, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment letting me know which story hits the hardest today. Trust me, you're going to have opinions on all of these. All right, let's get into it, because story number 1, this guy let his girlfriend live rent-free in his downtown Vancouver condo for 2 years, and she repaid him in the most unbelievable way possible. Let's dive in. Am I the asshole for evicting my GF of 3 years? Okay, buckle up, because this story is wild from start to finish, and I need you all to understand the absolute audacity we're about to witness here. So our writer is 33, living his best life in a downtown Vancouver condo that he straight up owns because he got an inheritance at 24. Smart move, honestly. No landlord, no mortgage, just vibes and property ownership. He's dating Stephanie, who's 28, and she's been living there for the last 2 years, completely rent-free. And I mean, our guy makes way more money anyway, so he's basically paying for everything. We love a provider, but keep this financial dynamic in mind because it's going to hit different in a minute. Now, here's where things get spicy. One Saturday morning about a month ago, Stephanie tells him she's going to a family dinner at her parents' place, which is about an hour away. In their 3 years together, this man has been to like 30 to 40 family dinners with her. He's been putting in the work with the in-laws, showing up, being present, probably eating her mom's casseroles or whatever. But this time, he's not invited. Her excuse? They're having a family meeting about grandma who's showing signs of dementia, and her brother and aunt are coming from out of town. Okay, I'll admit, that sounds legitimate on the surface. Family health stuff can be sensitive, I get it. And she wants to borrow his car to drive there. So she leaves in the afternoon, and around 10 p.m., our writer gets a text saying she had a few glasses of wine with her mom and is spending the night. Normal enough, right? Wine with mom, don't want to drive, safety first. We stan a responsible queen, or so we thought. Next morning rolls around, and it's 10 a.m. Stephanie is still MIA. Not home, not answering calls, not even looking at his texts. My guy is probably sitting there like, okay, what's going on? So he does what any reasonable person would do and calls her mom directly. And here's where everything goes absolutely sideways. Her mom tells him Stephanie is not there and there was no family dinner. I need you to understand the betrayal in this moment. This man just found out his girlfriend of 3 years completely lied to his face, took his car, and vanished into the night. Like, the lie wasn't even real for 24 hours before it crumbled. So what actually happened? Oh man, what actually happened is so much worse than you're thinking. Around noon the next day, someone's buzzing him from the building entrance. It's Stephanie. He buzzes her in because what else is he going to do? And the first thing she tells him is that she lost her keys. Not just any keys, though. The FABA to enter the building, the key to his apartment, and the key to his car. The trifecta of irresponsibility. Oh, and she also doesn't know where his car is. Let me paint you the picture of what went down. Stephanie went clubbing with a friend. Already a lie, already a betrayal of trust, but wait, there's more. They met a group of 3 guys at the club and decided to go home with them. Now, Stephanie was drunk, so she made the absolutely galaxy brain decision to let one of these 3 random dudes drive her boyfriend's new car. His new car, people. When they got to wherever these guys lived, the random stranger driving parked the car in a no parking area. Not just any no parking area, but a literal bus stop in downtown Vancouver. The car got towed. His brand new car got towed because some club rando didn't know how to read parking signs. Now here's where Stephanie's logic really starts to pop off. She believes she did nothing wrong because she didn't park the car. Like, ma'am, you handed the keys to a stranger. That's like saying, I didn't rob the bank. I just drove the getaway car and held the money. The mental gymnastics are Olympic level here. She also claims she didn't have sex with any of the guys, just her friend did, right? Because we're all supposed to believe she just sat there on the couch all night watching Netflix while her friend was getting busy with these dudes. She was just there to make sure her friend was safe. Girl, if you wanted to keep your friend safe, maybe don't let random club guys drive your boyfriend's car and lose all his keys. Just a thought. And get this, she doesn't even know the name of the guy who has the keys or how to contact him. These keys are just out there in the universe somewhere with some random dude who now has access to our writer's building, his apartment, and his car. That's a security nightmare. Her final defense? She had no choice but to lie because he doesn't like going to clubs. I'm sorry, what? You had no choice? Nobody forced you to go clubbing. Nobody forced you to lie about a fake family emergency involving your grandmother's dementia. That's not a no choice situation. That's a I made terrible decisions and now I'm facing consequences situation. So our writer evicted her. And honestly, can you blame him? But here's the kicker. Her entire family thinks he's wrong for evicting her. The same family that apparently was supposed to be having this serious meeting about grandma's health. Like, do they not see the problem here? Do they not understand that their daughter, sister, niece lied, took his car, gave it to strangers, lost all his keys, and put his entire living situation at risk? Now, the writer added some edits to clarify things because apparently people in the replies were confused. Yes, she was also dumped, not just evicted. Like, obviously. Did people think he was going to keep dating her and just make her move out? Hey, babe, you can't live here anymore but want to grab dinner Thursday? Come on now. He also points out that yes, he's aware it's unlikely she just sat in the living room all night while only her friend hooked up with these guys. Thank you for acknowledging what we were all thinking. The math isn't mathing on that story. In another edit, he confirms he got the car back. He's not out here donating a new car to a towing company, people. He called the police, they gave him the towing company number, and he picked it up an hour later. The police also confirmed this wouldn't be considered a stolen car situation, which honestly is probably for the best legally, even though it feels like theft of trust. Her building FOB was deactivated and not replaced, so he went from 4 FOBs down to 3. The door lock to his unit was replaced for free by his building because apparently all locks have to match on each door, and they had replacements ready. That's actually pretty nice of the building, but the car rekeying? That's in progress and not cheap. Because of course it's not. Nothing about this situation is cheap or easy. In his last edit, he clarifies it was slightly less than 2 years she lived there, probably closer to 20 months. This matters because apparently she's not entitled to any of his home equity, which, good, because can you imagine? Hey, I lied to you, lost your keys, let strangers drive your car, but also I want half your condo. The audacity that would require. He also mentions that according to his government-issued assessment, his place actually went down in value last year, which is just adding insult to injury in the Vancouver real estate market. And yes, Stephanie paid for the tow without him even asking, which is literally the least she could do. They went together, she paid. He got a parking ticket in the mail that he paid, but she's supposed to pay him back for. She's also agreed to pay for the car rekeying since it's very expensive. Apparently, Stephanie and her friend have been trying to find the keys and track down these guys. He really doesn't think they knew these guys beforehand or have any way to contact them, which honestly makes the whole thing even more reckless. Like, you gave your boyfriend's car keys to a complete stranger and now you're just hoping to run into him again? What's the plan? Camp out at the club every weekend like, hey, have you seen a guy, average height, had keys? So let's break this down. Writer gets an inheritance, buys property, lets girlfriend live there rent-free for almost 2 years, pays for basically everything, is a regular presence at family events, and in return gets lied to about a fake family emergency involving dementia, has his car taken without real permission, given to strangers, parked illegally, towed, and all his keys lost to random club dudes who could theoretically access his entire life. Am I the asshole? Absolutely not. Not even a little bit. Not even 0.01%. This man is so not the asshole that he's basically the anti-asshole. He's the hero of this story. Stephanie fumbled the bag so hard. She had free rent in Vancouver. Do you know how expensive Vancouver is? A boyfriend who provided for her, and she threw it all away for a night of clubbing that ended with his car at a tow lot. The disrespect is just layered. The initial lie about the family meeting, the betrayal of going clubbing when she knew he wouldn't approve, letting strangers drive his car, losing all his keys, not knowing how to contact the key guy, the weak excuse about keeping her friends safe, and then her family having the nerve to think he's wrong for evicting her? Ryder, you did the right thing. You protected yourself, your property, and your peace. Stephanie showed you exactly who she is. Someone who will lie to your face, disrespect your property, compromise your security, and then act like you're overreacting when you set boundaries. Her family can think whatever they want, but they're not the ones who had to deal with the aftermath of her choices. The writer is not the asshole. Stephanie is. Case closed, lock changed, FOB deactivated, and car getting rekeyed, as it should be. Am I the asshole for pointing out to my ex that this is what she wanted? Okay. So we're diving into a story that's giving major you can't have your cake and eat it too energy. And I'm already invested because this is one of those situations where someone is literally mad about the consequences of their own actions. Our writer and his ex-wife divorced 8 years ago. And get this, they did it amicably, which honestly, already rare. Most divorces are messy as hell, but these two managed to keep it civil, probably for the sake of their kids. Speaking of the kids, they had two of them who were 6 and 8 at the time of the divorce, which means they're now 14 and 16. Keep those ages in mind because it matters. Now, here's where the ex-wife came up with what honestly seems like a pretty creative custody solution at the time. Instead of making the kids pack up their stuff and bounce between two houses every week like tiny nomads, she proposed that the parents would be the ones switching. They'd each spend 2 weeks at the main house with the kids, and during their off time, they'd stay at an apartment they split rent on. So the kids got stability, got to stay in one house, keep all their stuff in one place, and the parents did the rotating. Low-key genius for young kids who probably just wanted their own rooms and their toys in one spot. But here's the crucial part that's about to become the center of all this drama. The ex-wife herself said they'd do this until one of them moved on and got remarried. Because obviously, yeah, you can't expect someone's new spouse to be cool with them living in a house with their ex every other week. That's just common sense. They agreed to this, put it in writing, specifically including that this custody arrangement would only last until one of them got married. They also agreed that when this arrangement ended, they'd sell the house and split the profits since it's in both their names. Fast forward through the years, our writer has been with his now fiance for 3 years. They started living together at her place 2 years ago, so this is clearly a serious relationship, not some random fling. His ex also started living with her boyfriend around the same time, so they gave up the apartment since they both had other places to stay during their off weeks. They kept switching at the main house during custody time, but their partners didn't live at the main house full time. However, both partners have gotten to know the kids and everyone gets along, which is honestly the best case scenario in a blended family situation. The kids love our writer's fiance and are actually excited for the wedding. Like these teenagers are hyped for their dad to get married, which tells you the fiance is probably a really good person because teens can smell fake from a mile away. The ex was happy for them too, supportive even, until our writer brought up the very logical next step, putting the house on the market. And suddenly, the ex got weirded out and said she didn't want to change the arrangement. Now she's saying it was easier for her and it's nice to have a break from her boyfriend every 2 weeks. I'm sorry. What? Girl, if you need a break from your boyfriend every 2 weeks, that's not a boyfriend problem. That's a you problem or a relationship problem. That's not a valid reason to keep an 8-year-old custody agreement going indefinitely. Our writer very reasonably said he gets that, but he and his fiance are getting a new place together. because that's what you do when you're about to get married. You build a life together. Build a life together. The kids are okay with this change. They're fine with switching houses at this point because they're older now, more independent. They can handle having two spaces. He even offered his ex the option to buy him out of the house, which is honestly more than fair. But she can't afford to do that, which, okay, that's unfortunate, but also not his problem to solve. Then she drops this absolutely wild line. She didn't expect I'd ever move on. Excuse me? You've been divorced for 8 years. You're literally living with a boyfriend. What kind of main character syndrome is this, where she thought her ex-husband would just never remarry? Our writer asked the very logical question, what if she married her boyfriend? And she says she has no plans of remarrying and thought he wouldn't want to either. The audacity, the assumptions. She just decided in her head that neither of them would ever remarry and built her entire life plan around that unspoken expectation that existed only in her mind. Our writer's response is perfect and simple. Well, I am, because what else is there to say? He's allowed to move on. He's allowed to get married. They've been divorced for almost a decade. So, they started the process of selling the house, as was always the plan according to their written agreement. And now the ex is trying to turn the kids against the idea, which is honestly kind of manipulative and not great co-parenting. But plot twist. The kids don't care. They honestly don't mind. They've been loving the house hunting process with dad and fiance. The eldest even wants to help the fiance decorate because they're close, which is so wholesome and shows what a good relationship they've built. And here's another thing that completely contradicts the ex's drama. The kids are also excited to spend more time with their mom's boyfriend because they'll be living with him and their mom. He's described as a very nice guy and they like him. So it's not like this change is traumatic for anyone, except the ex-wife who's mad that reality doesn't match her fantasy. Recently, they got an offer on the house, which is exciting but also emotional because, yeah, this is a home they purchased together and raised their kids in for years. Our writer totally gets that it's emotional, and he's feeling it too. But when they were discussing the offer, the ex told him this is all his fault that she had to sell her children's childhood home. His fault. The man, who is literally following the agreement she created, is somehow at fault. Make it make sense. So our writer pointed out the obvious truth that she's the one who came up with this idea 8 years ago. And she's the one who put the clause in there about selling when one of them remarried. It's not his fault that she had some unspoken, unrealistic expectation that lived only in her head, which is just facts. He's literally stating objective reality. And this set her off even more. She started sobbing and told him he's a jerk for throwing this back in her face. But he's not throwing anything in her face. He's just reminding her of the agreement they both made. The agreement she proposed. That's not throwing something in someone's face. That's just referencing the actual facts of the situation. Now our writer is worried because they've amicably co-parented for 8 years, and he doesn't want to see that end over something like this, which shows he's actually a really considerate person who values the co-parenting relationship and wants what's best for his kids. He added an edit addressing people who were probably commenting that she's still in love with him. He honestly doubts it, and I think he's probably right. He explains that she has commitment issues, which is part of why they didn't work out in the first place. She didn't cheat, but she found marriage suffocating. So there's the root of the problem right there. She doesn't like commitment. She doesn't like feeling tied down, but she also doesn't want to be alone. He thinks she wants an out from going further with her boyfriend, but doesn't want to lose him either. She tends to hold on to things and people, which is apparently what took them so long to divorce in the first place. So we're dealing with someone who has a pattern of wanting contradictory things and expecting reality to bend to accommodate her. Let's break down what's actually happening here. The ex-wife wants to keep the current arrangement that gives her a break from her boyfriend, to not commit further to her boyfriend, to not lose her boyfriend, to keep her ex-husband from moving forward with his life, to not buy out the house herself, to somehow keep everything exactly as it is forever. But here's the thing about life. It doesn't work that way. You can't freeze time because the current situation is comfortable. You can't expect other people to put their lives on hold because you have commitment issues and want a built-in escape from your relationship every 2 weeks. And the whole "I didn't expect you'd ever move on" thing, that's so incredibly selfish. Even if she genuinely didn't want to remarry herself, expecting him to feel the same way and never even discussing it is wild. They've been divorced for 8 years. People move on. People fall in love again. People get remarried. This is normal human behavior. The fact that she's trying to turn the kids against the idea is particularly gross because she's using them as pawns in her emotional breakdown. She's trying to make them feel bad about something they're actually excited about. The kids are happy. They're adjusting well. They like both parents' partners. They're ready for this next chapter. But she's trying to manipulate them into being upset about it to validate her own feelings. Also, let's talk about the boyfriend for a second. This poor guy is dating someone who openly admits she likes having a break from him every 2 weeks and has no plans to marry him. Like, does he know this? Is he aware that his girlfriend is using her custody arrangement as an escape hatch from their relationship? Because if I was him and I found out my partner was fighting to keep an arrangement specifically because it gave her regular breaks from me, I'd be reevaluating some things. The ex is basically having a meltdown because she has to face the consequences of her own proposal from 8 years ago. She created this arrangement. She set the terms, she put it in writing, and now she's big mad that those terms are being enforced exactly as written. This is like if you agreed to loan someone money with a specific repayment date, and then when that date came, you were like, wait, no, I didn't think you'd actually want the money back. Our writer has been nothing but reasonable through all of this. He followed the agreement they both signed, gave her advance notice about getting married, offered to let her buy him out, made sure the kids were okay with the change, acknowledged her emotions about selling, only pointed out the facts when she blamed him. What was he supposed to do? Never get married to accommodate her comfort, abandon his fiance because his ex didn't think through the consequences of her own custody arrangement, let her guilt trip him into indefinitely maintaining a situation that no longer works? And honestly, the kids being 14 and 16 now makes the whole thing even more reasonable. The original arrangement made sense when they were 6 and 8, little kids who needed stability and consistency. But teenagers? They can absolutely handle having 2 houses. They're old enough to manage their stuff, remember what's where, adapt to different spaces. The arrangement has outlived its usefulness anyway. The ex saying she's selling her children's childhood home like he's forcing this is manipulative language. It's not her children's home, it's their children's home. And their children are fine with selling it. The only person having a crisis is her. She's making this about the kids when really it's about her not wanting to face changes in her own life. You know what this really comes down to? The ex-wife wanted the security and stability of the house arrangement without any of the commitment or responsibility of actually owning it solo. She wanted the option to keep things exactly as they were forever, even though that was never the deal. She wanted her ex-husband to somehow intuitively know her unspoken expectations and comply with them, even though they directly contradict their written agreement. And when he very reasonably said, hey, this is what we agreed to, I'm getting married, we're selling the house, she's trying to make him the bad guy. She's sobbing, she's guilt-tripping, she's trying to manipulate the kids, she's blaming him for following through on her plan. That's not fair, and it's not okay. Am I the asshole? No, absolutely not. Not even a little bit. Our writer is completely in the right here. He's following the agreement that his ex-wife created and proposed. He gave her options. He's been communicative and fair. He's made sure the kids are okay with everything. He only pointed out the truth when she tried to blame him for something that was literally her idea. The ex-wife is the one having issues here, and those issues are hers to work through. Maybe she needs therapy to deal with her commitment problems. Maybe she needs to break up with her boyfriend if she needs biweekly breaks from him. Maybe she needs to accept that life moves forward and change is inevitable. But what she can't do is expect her ex-husband to put his life on hold indefinitely because she didn't think through her own plan. Writer, you're good. Keep planning your wedding, keep house hunting with your fiance and kids, and keep being the reasonable co-parent you've been for 8 years. Your ex will adjust eventually, and if she doesn't, that's her problem to solve, not yours. Am I the asshole for not telling my fiance why I am sterile? All right, because we're about to dive into a situation that involves medical history, communication in relationships, and what might be the most perfectly timed mom comment in history. I'm already sensing layers to this one. So, our writer is a woman in her late 20s, and her fiance, Carlos, is in his early 30s. They're still fighting about something that happened 2 weeks ago, which already tells us this hit some kind of nerve because usually after 2 weeks, you've either resolved it or you're in serious trouble territory. Here's the medical backstory that's crucial to understanding everything. When our writer was 21 years old, she had a partial hysterectomy because of adenomyosis. For anyone who doesn't know, adenomyosis is when the tissue that normally lines the uterus grows into the muscular wall of the uterus, and it's painful, like really genuinely painful. This wasn't some casual elective surgery she decided to get on a whim. Her doctor spent 2 years fighting for approval for this procedure because many people were against the idea. 2 years. Imagine dealing with chronic pain while your doctor has to battle insurance companies, medical boards, or whoever else was standing in the way of her getting relief. That's exhausting and honestly kind of infuriating that a young woman in pain had to jump through hoops for years to get a medical procedure she needed. But here's the thing. Our writer didn't mind losing her uterus for two reasons. First, obviously, it was causing her significant pain and medical issues. But second, and this is important, she was always child-free. Even as a kid, she didn't like kids. So this wasn't some devastating loss of future plans for her. This was actually solving a problem without sacrificing something she wanted anyway. Fast forward to 3 years ago when she met Carlos, and this is where I want to give her credit. She told him on day one that she was child-free and completely sterile. Day one, not after they'd been dating for months and were already emotionally invested, not after she thought he might be the one. Literally on their first meeting, she put her cards on the table. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm child-free and cannot have biological children, just so we're clear. Carlos said he was child-free too, so they went ahead with the relationship. They've been together for 3 years now, and he proposed in September. They started slowly planning the wedding, doing all the normal engaged couple stuff. And in those 3 years, she never specifically told him about the hysterectomy itself, not the details, not the procedure, not the medical specifics. She told him the outcome, sterility, but not the method. Now, she says she didn't hide it on purpose. It honestly just slipped her mind because she'd already told him the important part, which was that she couldn't get pregnant. And honestly, I can see how that would happen. If you've already had the crucial conversation about, I cannot biologically have children, the specific medical reason might not come up again. It's like telling someone you can't eat gluten and then never following up with the exact details of your celiac diagnosis. The outcome is what matters in day-to-day life. Here's where things get absolutely wild, though. Her mom didn't know about the engagement because she'd been out of the country taking care of her elderly sister. Our writer wanted to tell her mom in person, which is sweet and thoughtful. So mom comes back 3 weeks ago, rests for a week to recover from her trip, and then they invite her to lunch to share the big engagement news. Now, Carlos is described as a prankster, but not the weird kind, which I appreciate as a distinction because some pranksters are just mean and call it humor. While they're eating and before our writer can show her mom the ring, Carlos grabs mom's hand and says, I am sorry, Mrs. My Mom, I impregnated your daughter. First of all, bold move to joke about that when meeting your future mother-in-law for engagement lunch. But here's where it gets absolutely chef's kiss perfect. Mom burst out laughing, looked at her daughter, and said, either you are about to get rich or you grew a new uterus. I need everyone to appreciate how savage and iconic this response is. Mom basically said, well, either my daughter is about to sue you for a medical miracle or this is impossible. She's implying her daughter would be rich from the medical phenomenon of regrowing a uterus. This woman is a legend, and I want her energy." Our writer laughed too and said she hoped not because she had to talk to half the doctors in the country and their grandmas the first time. Which, honestly, facts. She fought for 2 years for that surgery. She's not trying to undo it. But then Carlos just stared at her and said, "What do you mean?" And suddenly the vibe shifted from funny engagement lunch to confusion central. Mom said, "The hysterectomy, of course," probably thinking this was common knowledge between the engaged couple. Carlos said he had never heard about it. Mom laughed again, probably thinking this was some kind of joke or miscommunication, and asked how he didn't know. Our writer said she guessed she never brought it up because she doesn't think about it anymore. Let's pause here and really consider what just happened. This man just found out at an engagement lunch from his fiance's mom, via a pregnancy joke gone sideways, that his partner had major surgery years ago. That's a lot to process in the middle of lunch. I can understand why he'd be thrown off. They were quiet for a second, which must have been the most awkward silence in history. Then our writer showed her mom the ring, and they celebrated the engagement, but you know that silence was hanging over everything. The energy had shifted. After Mom left, Carlos confronted her about it. He asked why she never told him about the surgery, and she told him she had told him the important part, that she was sterile. Which, again, I can see her logic here. The functional outcome is what matters for their relationship planning, right? But Carlos said the issue was the principle. If she could keep something so big to herself for years, what else could she be hiding? And okay, now we're getting to the real emotional core of this conflict. It's not really about the hysterectomy itself. It's about what he perceives as a major omission and what that might mean about their communication and trust. Our writer feels like that's unfair. She shared the relevant part at the time, the sterility, and later she just didn't think about the medical details. She wasn't trying to keep secrets. She simply didn't think the specifics were relevant once they'd already agreed on being child-free together. And honestly, both of these perspectives make sense to me, which is what makes this situation so complicated. From her side, she had a traumatic medical experience at 21 that solved a painful problem. She's been living without her uterus for years now. She's in her late 20s, so we're talking probably 6 to 8 years of just existing post-hysterectomy. It's become her normal. She told Carlos immediately that she couldn't have kids. In her mind, mission accomplished, all necessary information conveyed. The how of her sterility seemed less important than the fact of it. From his side, they're about to get married, and he just found out from her mom that she had major surgery that he never knew about. He's probably thinking about all the times it could have come up in conversation over 3 years and didn't. He's probably feeling weird about her mom knowing something he didn't. And he's probably questioning what else he might not know about his partner's life and medical history. Our writer added that Carlos read the post and approved it. So this isn't just her point of view. They're trying to get outside opinions together, which actually shows a pretty healthy approach to conflict resolution. They're stuck, they both feel valid in their positions, and they want to know what objective strangers think. Now, she came back to the post after getting a ton of responses and added some edits to answer common questions, and this is where we get even more context that honestly shifts my understanding of the whole situation. First question people asked, "How did you forget to tell him this?" Her answer is heartbreaking. It was a very traumatic experience, and everyone and their mother looked at her vagina, well, uterus actually. She felt embarrassed for a long time and pushed the experience deep enough that she forgot about it. This is so important. This wasn't just some routine medical procedure she casually forgot to mention. This was trauma. She was 21 years old, in pain, fighting for approval for 2 years, and then had to go through an invasive procedure where she felt like everyone was examining her most private areas. She dealt with it by compartmentalizing it so hard that she essentially buried the memory. That's not deception. That's trauma response. She pushed it down so she wouldn't have to think about it, and it worked so well that she genuinely didn't think to bring it up because her brain had filed it under processed and done with. Why didn't she tell him? At first, because she wasn't about to trauma dump on a dude she'd known for 2 hours, which, very fair. You don't lead with your traumatic medical history on a first date. She also describes herself as a very quiet person. On their first date, she said maybe 50 words total. She's more talkative now, at least with him, but she likes her privacy and likes to keep deeply personal things to herself unless they're relevant to something. This paints such a different picture than someone deliberately hiding information from their partner. This is someone who is naturally private, who experienced medical trauma, who deals with that trauma by not dwelling on it, and who genuinely thought she'd communicated the relevant information, sterility, without needing to share the painful details, how she became sterile. In edit 2, they address more questions together, which I love because it shows they're working through this as a team. Did Carlos know the difference between sterile and infertile? Apparently not. He thought they were the same thing, both meaning not able to have babies. Which, okay, this is actually a pretty significant misunderstanding. Infertile means difficulty conceiving, but potentially still possible. Sterile means impossible. If he didn't understand that distinction, he might not have fully grasped that she was telling him she cannot have biological children under any circumstances. How did he not notice she didn't have periods? To be fair, they've only been living together for 5 months, and he thought she had PCOS like his sister. So he did notice something, but made an assumption about what was going on. PCOS can cause irregular or absent periods. So if he noticed she didn't seem to get periods regularly, his brain filled in the blank with something he was familiar with. Is Carlos really child-free, or did he think he'd change her mind after the wedding? He says no, he is child-free and was even thinking about getting a vasectomy to be extra safe. This is actually really important because it confirms he wasn't secretly hoping she'd somehow have kids, despite saying she was sterile. He's genuinely on board with the no kids plan. How didn't he notice any scars or hormone therapy? She doesn't have any visible scars because the procedure was done vaginally, so the scarring is on the inside. She doesn't need hormones, at least not yet, because she still has her ovaries and they're healthy. So there were no physical signs for him to pick up on. She's not taking daily medication or dealing with ongoing treatments that would bring it up naturally in conversation. And here's where some commenters made a really good point that our writer acknowledged. She should have told him just in case of an emergency. She admits she honestly never thought about that part. And yeah, that's valid. If there's ever a medical emergency where doctors need to know her full history, or if she has complications related to the surgery, Carlos would need to know this information to help her or advocate for her medically. They're planning to update once they have their session with a couples counselor because she feels there are things that are better to discuss with a professional. This is such a mature approach. They recognize this hit a nerve, they're not sure how to resolve it on their own, and they're bringing in someone trained to help couples navigate exactly these kinds of conflicts. So let me break down what I think is really happening here. Our writer experienced medical trauma at a young age. She fought for 2 years for a procedure, went through something invasive and embarrassing, and then coped by compartmentalizing the experience. She told Carlos the functional outcome on day 1, but never went into the details because those details were painful and, in her mind, unnecessary. Carlos found out about major surgery his fiance had, not from her, but from her mom during a lunch where he was joking around. He felt blindsided and is now questioning what else he doesn't know, not because he's actually worried she's hiding things, but because finding out something significant from someone else feels really weird in a relationship. Neither of them is actually wrong here. She's not wrong for being private about her trauma. He's not wrong for feeling weird about finding out this way. The issue is they had different understandings of what information needed to be shared. Some people are very open books about their medical history and think of it as important context for their partner to have. Other people are more private and only share what they consider functionally relevant. Neither approach is inherently wrong, but you need to be on the same page in a relationship. The fact that Carlos didn't even understand the difference between sterile and infertile suggests they maybe didn't have as thorough a conversation about this as either of them thought. Uh, she said sterile, thinking it was completely clear. He heard, can't have kids, but didn't fully process what that meant or how permanent it was. And let's be real about something. Our writer is in her late 20s and has been living without a uterus since she was 21. For her, this is just her body. This is her normal. She probably doesn't think about her missing uterus any more than most people actively think about having one. It's just it's just the state of being she's existed in for a significant chunk of her adult life. Meanwhile, Carlos is processing that his partner had an organ removed and he didn't know. Even though it's been her reality for years, it's brand new information to him, so it feels much bigger and more significant. The emergency thing is real, though. What if she'd been in a car accident and unconscious? What if she had complications related to the surgery? What if she needed emergency medical care and Carlos didn't have the information doctors needed? That's a practical reason to share medical history beyond just the emotional or trust aspects. Uh, but I also want to push back on the idea that she was obligated to share her trauma details just because they're engaged. She told him what he needed to know for their relationship. She cannot have biological children and is firmly child free. The specific medical procedure that led to that state is, in many ways, her private medical information that she gets to choose when and if to share. However, 3 years into a relationship heading toward marriage, yeah, that information probably should have come up at some point. Not on day 1, not even in year 1 necessarily, but at some point in 3 years of building a life together. The mom's comment, though, still iconic. Either you're about to get rich or you grew a new uterus is such a perfect, loving, supportive, but sarcastic mom response. She knew immediately that Carlos was joking and played into it while also accidentally revealing information he didn't have. You can't even be mad at mom because why wouldn't she assume her daughter's fiance knew about a major surgery? Am I the asshole? I'm going to say no, but with some nuance. Our writer is not an asshole for not sharing trauma details, for being private, or for genuinely not thinking about a surgery that happened years ago. She's not an asshole for prioritizing her mental health by not dwelling on a painful experience. And she did tell Carlos the functionally important information on day 1. However, Carlos is also not an asshole for feeling weird about finding this out from her mom at lunch. He's not an asshole for wanting to understand his partner's medical history, especially as they're planning a marriage. He's not an asshole for feeling like this was significant information that should have been shared at some point in 3 years. This is one of those rare situations where I don't think there's actually an asshole. There's just two people who had different ideas about what information needed to be shared, complicated by trauma, privacy needs, and a very awkward reveal moment. Um, the fact that they're going to couples counseling is perfect. They need to talk about communication styles, privacy boundaries, trauma responses, and what information they each expect to be shared in their relationship going forward. These are healthy conversations to have before marriage. Writer, you're not an asshole for protecting yourself from trauma by not dwelling on it. Carlos, you're not an asshole for wanting to know your partner's medical history. You both just need to get on the same page about communication and privacy expectations, and it sounds like you're taking the right steps to do exactly that. Keep talking, keep being honest with each other, and maybe come up with a game plan for what information gets shared going forward. You got this. Am I the asshole for quitting my chore of cooking 2 nights a week because my little sister keeps ruining it and my parents expect me to start over every time? All right, so we've got a 16-year-old writer here who's about to take us on a journey through what I can only describe as kitchen warfare. And honestly, my blood pressure is already rising just reading the title. Our writer is the oldest of 4 kids. He's got 2 brothers who are 13 and 11, and then there's the star of our chaos show, his 8-year-old little sister. Now, important context here. His 11-year-old brother has ASD and goes to therapy twice a week until late. This meant his parents were always struggling to get dinner sorted on those nights, so they were doing a lot of takeout. Then last year, his parents came to him with a proposition. They asked if he'd be willing to cook 2 nights a week, and in exchange, they'd remove one of his other chores. And honestly, that seems like a fair trade at first glance. Our writer was cool with it because at the time he really didn't mind cooking. Maybe he even enjoyed it a little, you know? Cooking can be chill when you're just vibing in the kitchen making something nice for your family. But then, but then, everything changed when the 8-year-old sister attacked. A few months ago, little sis started acting out and being difficult with basically everything. She wants to stay up late and throws full-blown tantrums when she doesn't get new toys or whatever she wants in the moment. Classic 8-year-old behavior taken to the extreme, right? But here's where it gets absolutely unhinged. She hates not getting to choose what the family has for dinner. And instead of, I don't know, using her words like a normal person or even just refusing to eat it, this girl has decided to become a full-on food terrorist. She started throwing her dinner on the floor, just straight up yeeting it onto the ground like she's in a food fight, except she's the only one fighting. But wait, it gets so much worse. When our writer is cooking, she started knocking stuff onto the floor while he's actively cooking or prepping. Picture this. You're 16 years old. You're trying to do something helpful for your family. You're in the middle of chopping vegetables or stirring something on the stove, and your 8-year-old sister just comes through like a tiny kitchen gremlin, knocking your ingredients everywhere. And if that wasn't bad enough, she'll spit in the food multiple times. A bunch, as our writer says. She will literally stand there and spit in the dinner he's making to force him to throw it out. I need everyone to understand how absolutely vile this is. This isn't a one-time thing. This is a calculated strategy from an 8-year-old. Or because apparently she has a whole arsenal of dinner sabotage tactics, she'll dump ketchup or mayo into whatever he's cooking. And she always does this when he has stuff close to being done or when he's been making dinner for a while already. This is intentional. She's timing her attacks for maximum damage and frustration. This kid is out here playing 4D chess with condiments. Our writer has tried to stop her multiple times, but she just keeps trying over and over again until she can win. And if he manages to physically block her from ruining the food, she'll start spitting and aiming for the dinner. This girl has backup plans for her backup plans. She's more strategic than some military operations. Now, here's the part that really makes my brain short circuit. His parents never say anything to her. Never. Nay, they just expect him to start over when she messes with the food. Like it's no big deal. Like he's not a teenager who probably has homework and his own life and is already doing them a massive favor by cooking in the first place. They've gotten mad at him a couple of times when he refused to start over after his sister spoiled the dinner he was literally about to serve. Let that sink in. He's the one getting in trouble. Not the child who's spitting in food and dumping condiments everywhere like she's running a prank channel. His sister doesn't listen to him either, which honestly tracks. Because why would she? There are zero consequences for her actions. She literally screams at him that he can't stop her. An 8-year-old is screaming at her teenage brother that he's powerless while their parents just exist somewhere in the house doing nothing about it. Like, it makes sense. He has talked to his parents about this so many times. Multiple conversations. He's tried to communicate the problem like a mature person. And what's their advice? Keep calm and redo when you need to. Keep calm. My guy's probably spending like an hour cooking dinner just for his sister to spit in it at the last second, and they're telling him to keep calm and start from scratch. Like he's got infinite time and patience. He reached a breaking point where he wanted to kick her out of the house when she was acting like that, and he acknowledges he can't because she's only 8. But can we appreciate his self-awareness here? He knows his anger is getting to an unhealthy level. He knows he can't actually kick out an 8-year-old. Instead of letting it escalate to something worse, he made the mature decision to remove himself from the situation. He quit cooking twice a week and went back to doing his old chore instead. This is actually a really reasonable boundary. He's not refusing to do chores altogether. He's not throwing a tantrum. He's just saying, I can't do this specific thing anymore because the circumstances have become intolerable. But his parents? Oh, his parents are big mad. They told him he doesn't get to just quit, and they're fighting with him because they think cooking is more important and he's quitting too easy. Quitting too easy? This boy has been getting his cooking sabotaged by an 8-year-old with zero backup from the people who are supposed to be parenting her, and they think he's quitting too easy? They said, "We need to eat." Yeah, and they're the parents. They're adults. They managed to feed their family before they voluntarily parentified their teenage son into being the family chef 2 nights a week. They told him he was doing something really good for the family, and he's old enough to realize the impact. The manipulation is jumping out so hard here. They're trying to guilt trip a 16-year-old for having boundaries. Let's talk about what's really happening here. The parents have a convenient situation going on. Their 16-year-old cooks 2 nights a week, which means they don't have to deal with the dinner rush on therapy nights. That's helpful for them. But instead of addressing the actual problem, their 8-year-old daughter, who is completely out of control and destroying food, wasting money, and tormenting her brother, they're just expecting their teenager to absorb all the chaos and keep performing his role. The 8-year-old isn't facing any consequences. She's learning that she can spit in food, dump condiments in dinner, throw tantrums, and absolutely nothing will happen to her except her brother has to cook again. What kind of lesson is that teaching her? What kind of person is she going to become if this behavior continues? And let's be real about the deeper issue here. The parents are probably overwhelmed. They've got 4 kids, one with ASD who needs therapy twice a week. That's a lot. I get it. But being overwhelmed doesn't mean you get to just ignore one child's destructive behavior and put all the emotional labor on another child. That's not fair to the writer, and it's not fair to the 8-year-old either, because she's not learning how to be a functioning human being. The writer even points out that his sister doesn't just do this with dinner. She's throwing tantrums about staying up late and wanting new toys. This is a pattern of behavior that his parents are just allowing. There's no discipline, no consequences, no teaching moments. Just keep calm and cook another dinner, son. Also, can we talk about the waste? Food costs money. Our writer is probably going through ingredients, spending time cooking, and then having to throw it all away because his sister contaminated with spit or ketchup. That's groceries in the trash. That's money down the drain. And the parents are just cool with this? They'd rather waste food and money than discipline their 8-year-old? And the time investment. Cooking dinner isn't a 5-minute thing. Depending on what you're making, it could be 30 minutes to an hour or more of active work. This kid is probably getting home from school, doing some homework, starting dinner prep, cooking, and then bam, sister strikes and he has to do it all over again. That could mean he's in the kitchen for 2 hours or more on nights when she successfully sabotages him multiple times. What about his homework? His social life? His mental health? He's 16. He should be hanging out with friends, stressing about normal teenager stuff, maybe playing video games or watching shows. Instead, he's locked in psychological warfare with an 8-year-old while his parents ref the match and tell him to just take the hits and keep going. The fact that he got so frustrated he wanted to kick her out and recognize that as a warning sign is actually really mature. A lot of teenagers wouldn't have that self-awareness. They would have just kept going until they actually did something they regretted. Instead, our writer said, "I need to remove myself from this situation before my anger becomes a real problem," and enforced a boundary. His parents fighting with him over this is wild. They're literally upset that their free labor is setting boundaries. Because that's what this is. He's free labor. They're not paying him. They made a chore exchange deal, sure, but now the terms have fundamentally changed. The deal was cook 2 nights a week, not cook 2 nights a week and also redo dinner multiple times because we refuse to parent your sister. When the circumstances of an agreement change drastically, it's completely fair to renegotiate or back out. That's just basic contract logic. If he agreed to mow the lawn and then they got 10 more acres of grass, he'd be justified in saying, "Wait, this isn't what I signed up for." The parents saying he's old enough to realize the impact is peak parent manipulation. Yes, he's old enough to realize the impact of being disrespected in his own home, the impact of his time being wasted, the impact of his parents choosing convenience over actual parenting, the impact of watching his sister become more and more entitled, with zero consequences. And here's something that really gets me. Where are the parents during these dinner sabotage sessions? Is the 8-year-old just wandering unsupervised into the kitchen to commit food crimes? Are the parents right there watching it happen? If they're home, why aren't they managing their 8-year-old? If they're not home, then they're leaving a teenager in charge and then getting mad when he can't control a child that they can't even control. The sister screaming, "You can't stop me," is the result of parents who have shown her that she's right. Nobody can stop her because nobody will enforce any rules. She's 8 years old and she's already learned that tantrums and destruction get her what she wants, which is chaos and control over the family dinner situation. This isn't just about cooking. This is about a family dynamic where the oldest child is expected to be a third parent without any of the authority. He's supposed to cook, manage his sister's behavior, redo dinner when she destroys it, and just smile through it all while his parents do. What exactly? What are they doing to help this situation? The answer is nothing. They're doing nothing except criticizing their son for having limits. Am I the asshole? Absolutely not. Not even close. The writer is so far from being the asshole that he's in a completely different galaxy. He tried to help his family. He took on extra responsibility willingly. He attempted to address the problem through communication multiple times. When the situation became untenable and started affecting his mental health, he enforced a boundary and went back to his original chore arrangement. The assholes here are 100% the parents. They're failing both their children, the 16-year-old who they're trying to guilt trip and parentify, and the 8-year-old who they're allowing to become a tiny terror with no consequences. The 8-year-old isn't really an asshole either because she's 8 and she's only doing what she's been taught, works through her parents' complete lack of discipline. Writer, you did the right thing. Your parents need to actually parent. They need to address your sister's behavior instead of expecting you to just absorb it endlessly. You're not their employee. You're their kid. You're not quitting too easy. You held on way longer than most people would have. Stand your ground on this one. The parents can figure out dinner on therapy nights like they did before. It's literally their job. Am I the asshole for calling my ex-roommate when cops came looking for her? Okay, so we're diving into a situation that involves cops, probation, ex-roommates, and a whole lot of questionable decision making. And I'm already stressed just reading the title because this is gonna be messy. Our writer is a 28-year-old woman who had a roommate living with her from September to October. So we're talking about a pretty short-term situation, just a couple months where someone needed a temporary place to stay while they got back on their feet and found their own place. Pretty straightforward roommate arrangement, right? Helping someone out during a transitional period. Now, here's some important context. They found out they were both on probation, both of them, which, okay, I'm not here to judge anyone's past. People make mistakes, and the justice system is what it is. But this detail is absolutely crucial to understanding why everything that follows becomes so complicated. They were both dealing with probation officers, both keeping court appointments, and according to our writer, it was all fine and dandy. They were handling their business, meeting their obligations, doing what they needed to do. The ex-roommate moved out after getting her own place, which is exactly what was supposed to happen. She found somewhere to live and moved on. Cool. Arrangement fulfilled. Everyone should be good, right? Wrong. Today, and by today, I mean the day our writer posted this, a cop came to the door. Now our writer is a woman living alone, so she went through all the safety measures. She asked him to identify himself, show a badge, all the safety protocols that people tell you to go through when you're a female living home alone. Smart. You can't be too careful. She stepped outside and basically asked, "What's up?" The cop asked if her ex-roommate was home. Our writer explained that she moved out, which is just factual information. Then he asked if the address he had was the new address, and our writer confirmed it. He asked if a specific phone number was hers, and our writer said, yeah. Then he asked her to call the ex-roommate. And here's where our writer made the choice that's now causing all this drama. She said, sure, and called her. She wasn't thinking much of it at the time, which honestly I get because when a cop is standing in front of you asking you to do something, your brain kind of goes into compliance mode, especially if you're also on probation and don't want any problems. So she called the ex-roommate, and as soon as the ex heard the cop's voice, because the cop did the gimme motion for the phone, though our writer clarifies she did not hand him the phone, she just put it on speaker, the ex-roommate hung up immediately. Then she texted our writer saying, "How dare I betrayed her and not just lie to the cops, that I had no clue where she was, and I should have said she was out of state or lied and said she was there but in the shower or literally anything to avoid her talking to them." Okay, so let's pause here because the audacity is already showing itself. This woman is mad that her ex-roommate didn't lie to the police on her behalf. She wanted our writer to risk her own legal situation by giving false information to law enforcement. And she's acting like this is some kind of given, like, of course you should lie to cops for someone you lived with for 2 months. Our writer responded with what I think is extremely logical reasoning. She told the ex-roommate that she wasn't going to lie to the cops. Very reasonable. And then she broke down why the shower lie wouldn't even work. The cop would just sit outside until she came out of the shower. Since the ex is on probation, same as our writer, the cop could potentially come inside for a wellness check if she wasn't out of the shower after a period of time. Both of these are completely valid points. It's not like saying she's in the shower would make the cop go, "Oh, okay, cool, I'll come back never then." He would wait, or he would use his authority to check on her. And the out-of-state lie? Our writer points out that you need probation officer permission to leave the state. So telling the cop she's out of state when she's on probation would be basically saying she violated her probation, which would result in a warrant for her arrest. And if they found and arrested the ex, our writer could get in trouble for lying to them. This is not paranoia. This is understanding how the legal system works. Our writer is also on probation. She cannot afford to get caught lying to police. That could violate her probation. She's protecting herself here, which is completely reasonable. But the ex-roommate snapped back with, "Did they threaten to throw you in jail if you didn't call me? You're a lying asshole. I don't want to talk to you anymore, and anything I have there, I'll figure out how to get out of there because I can't trust you anymore." First of all, "You're a lying asshole," when our writer was literally being honest, is wild. That's the opposite of lying. She's a truthful person, if anything. And the dramatic, "I can't trust you anymore" over not lying to police? Girl, that's not what trust means. Trust doesn't mean we'll commit crimes on my behalf. Also, the stuff she left there, a diamond art painting and a library book. That's it. She's acting like our writer is holding her precious belongings hostage when we're talking about a craft project and a book that technically belongs to the library anyway. Our writer's friend says she did the right thing because even if she wasn't on probation, the friend would have done the same thing, called and warned that cops were looking for her, which honestly is a fair point. Giving someone a heads up that police are looking for them is helpful. It's not like our writer ambushed her. She literally called so the ex would know what was going on. But the friend's wife had a different take. She said our writer could have just not answered the door or declined to say she knew the ex or her phone number. And okay, let's talk about this alternative scenario. Our writer points out that the cop could see her from the living room window cooking in the kitchen. It's a ground floor, open plan apartment where the living room has a direct line of sight to the kitchen from outside. She could see her fridge and stove from the window when walking to her door, same as the cop could see her inside. So, not answering the door when the cop can literally see you inside seems like a terrible strategy that would probably make things worse. And declining to say you know someone when you literally shared an address with them for 2 months? That's a lie that could easily be proven false and get you in trouble. Our writer feels like she did the right thing but isn't too sure, which is why she's asking for outside opinions. And honestly, I respect the self-reflection here, even though I think the answer is pretty clear. But wait, it gets worse. Now the ex-roommate's friends are texting our writer saying she really pissed her off and friends don't rat friends out to the cops. First of all, they lived together for 2 months. They're not ride or die besties who've known each other since kindergarten. They're ex-roommates who had a temporary living arrangement. The friendship loyalty angle is being way oversold here. Second, ratting someone out implies you told the cop something they didn't already know. The cop already had her address. He already had her phone number. He wasn't asking, "Do you know anyone on probation?" And our writer volunteered information. He came there specifically looking for this woman with her information already in hand. And third, even if they were close friends, asking someone to risk their own probation status by lying to police is not what friends do. Friends don't put friends in legal jeopardy. Now, our writer added an edit with some crucial information that honestly makes the ex-roommate look even worse. The cops did go to the ex's apartment yesterday looking for her, and she didn't answer the door. She told our writer wasn't going to answer the door for the cops because she didn't want them to kill her, which, okay, there are valid fears about police violence, and I'm not going to dismiss those concerns, but there are also ways to handle being contacted by law enforcement when you're on probation that don't involve just hiding forever. When our writer told her about tonight's visit and that it was legit just a pack of papers in his hand, so probably some kind of legal documents, maybe a court summons or probation paperwork, not like he was coming to arrest her, the ex said, "Well, they won't meet me in public, and I ain't letting them talk to me at my place. I'll leave the state if I gotta." Leave the state. When you're on probation, after our writer just explained why that's a terrible idea that would result in a warrant. Our writer told her that was a horrible idea because she'd get a warrant, and our writer would probably get in trouble even more because she knew of her intent to flee the state. Which again, completely valid concern. If the ex flees and the cops find out our writer knew about it, that's potential obstruction or aiding a fugitive territory. But the ex read the message, said blocked, and now our writer can't message or call her again. So now our writer doesn't know what to do if the cops come back looking for her. Okay, let's break down what's actually happening here because there are layers to this mess. The ex-roommate is clearly avoiding something related to her probation. Maybe she missed a meeting with her PO, maybe she missed a court date, maybe there's some kind of violation. Whatever it is, the cops are actively looking for her with paperwork. Instead of handling it like an adult, calling her PO, getting a lawyer, figuring out what's needed, she's avoiding the cops, not answering her door, and now threatening to flee the state. These are all choices that make her situation worse, not better. She's expecting our writer to risk her own probation status by lying to police to help her avoid whatever she's avoiding. That's not fair. That's not friendship. That's asking someone to potentially get arrested on your behalf. Our writer is in a position where she's damned if she does, damned if she doesn't. If she lies to the cops and gets caught, she violates her probation. If she tells the truth, her ex-roommate acts like she's a traitor. But only one of these options has legal consequences. The friend's wife suggesting she could have just not answered the door or denied knowing the ex is giving advice from the perspective of someone who isn't on probation. When you're on probation, the rules are different. You have to be extra careful about any interactions with law enforcement. You cannot afford to get caught in lies. And honestly, even if our writer wasn't on probation, why should she have to lie and potentially obstruct justice for someone she lived with for 2 months? That's not a reasonable expectation. The ex's friends texting her about ratting out friends are completely misunderstanding the situation. Our writer didn't go to the cops with information. The cops came to her with information they already had. She just confirmed what they already knew and gave the ex a heads up by calling. In fact, calling the ex was actually helpful because it warned her that cops were looking for her. If our writer had just given the cop the phone number and not called herself first, the ex wouldn't have had any warning at all. So really, our writer did her a favor and is getting treated like a snitch for it. The diamond art painting and library book thing is almost funny in how dramatic the ex is being about retrieving her stuff. Like, girl, it's not the crown jewels. It's a craft project and a book that isn't even yours. The drama is so disproportionate to what's actually at stake. And now the ex is talking about fleeing the state, which is genuinely one of the worst possible decisions she could make. That turns whatever she's dealing with from probably manageable with a lawyer and showing up to court into active fugitive with a warrant. That's escalating the situation to the maximum level for no reason. Our writer is right to be concerned that she might get in trouble for knowing about the intent to flee. That's a real legal risk. If the cops come back and ask, "Do you know where she is?" and our writer knows the ex is planning to or has already fled the state, what is she supposed to do? Lie and risk her own freedom? Tell the truth and confirm she's a rat? There's no good option here. The blocking is honestly probably a blessing in disguise because it removes our writer from the situation. She can't be accused of helping or knowing about anything if the ex has cut off contact. If cops come back, our writer can honestly say, "I don't know where she is. She blocked me after I called her for you last time." Let's also talk about the cop's behavior here because the gimme motion for the phone is interesting. Our writer smartly didn't hand over her phone. She just put it on speaker. That's protecting her own property and privacy while still being compliant. If she'd handed over her phone, who knows what the cop might have looked through. Smart boundary setting there. The fact that the cop had the address and phone number already suggests he got it from official records, probably probation paperwork or court documents. So he wasn't fishing for information. He had specific intel and was just confirming it. Our writer literally just verified what was already in his paperwork. People who've never been on probation or in the legal system might not understand how different the rules are when you're under court supervision. You have to report your address changes. You have to keep appointments. You can't leave the state without permission. You have to answer questions from your PO and sometimes from cops. The consequences for violations can be serious: jail time, extended probation, fines. Our writer is navigating this system herself and trying to stay compliant so she can get through her probation successfully. The ex is asking her to risk all of that for someone she barely knows. That's not reasonable. The friends don't rat mentality is borrowed from a criminal code that doesn't apply to most people's lives. These aren't career criminals with some code of silence. They're people on probation trying to get their lives back on track. In that context, the smart move is to stay out of other people's legal trouble. And honestly, if the ex-roommate had just answered her door when cops came the first time or called her PO to figure out what was needed or been an adult about whatever she's dealing with, none of this would have happened. Our writer wouldn't have been put in this position at all. The ex created this situation by avoiding her responsibilities and then got mad when our writer didn't want to get dragged into the consequences. That's not our writer's fault. Am I the asshole? Absolutely not. Not even a little bit. Our writer is so clearly not the asshole here that it's almost frustrating she's questioning herself. She was put in an impossible situation by a cop showing up at her door while she was visible inside. She gave truthful answers to questions about someone who no longer lives there. She even tried to help by calling to give a heads up, and she's on probation herself, which means she has extra reason to be honest with law enforcement. The ex-roommate is the one creating problems by avoiding whatever legal issue she's dealing with and then expecting others to lie for her. Her friends are the ones pushing a toxic don't snitch mentality that doesn't apply to this situation. Writer, you did exactly what you should have done. You protected yourself legally while still trying to give your ex-roommate a warning. You don't owe her anything more than that, especially not risking your own freedom. The fact that she blocked you actually makes your life easier if cops come back. You can honestly say you have no idea what she's doing or where she is because you don't. Keep focusing on your own probation requirements and staying out of trouble. Let the ex-roommate deal with her own choices and consequences. You're doing great, and anyone who tells you otherwise doesn't understand how the legal system works or doesn't care about your well-being. Not the asshole. Not even close.